Thank you, Madam Speaker. On International Women's Day, I want to remind the Premier that there is near universal public support for restricting the abuse of non-disclosure agreements. Prince Edward Island and Saskatchewan have introduced their own legislation. 94% of members of the Canadian Bar Association support this. Acadia and King's University support this. And the Nova Scotia Federation of Labour, including the Nova Scotia General Employees Union and the Nova Scotia Nurses Union, support this. All of these organizations have vocally called for this government to protect the survivors of sexual assault and harassment from being silenced, and yet this government refuses to take action. Why won't the Premier act to stop the abuse of non-disclosure agreements?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for the question. Supporting survivors with sensitivity and respect is important, and the province agrees. Like nobody wants to see non-disclosure agreements used to silence victims. Nobody wants to see that. But we believe that survivors should have the option to make an informed choice on whether or not to sign an NDA. It's currently an option. There's no good options when you're a survivor of a sexual assault, Madam Speaker. But one of the options today is to sign an NDA. That's an option that is available. We're concerned about removing that option from survivors. But I would say Nova Scotia, or PEI, is the only province with broad legislation. But in Manitoba, the Manitoba Law Reform Commission recommended against NDA legislation.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
According to lawyer Ron Pink, this is not an option. There is an option, I should point out, in the bill before the House, but this is not an option. What Ron Pink says is that these things are signed for one purpose: to protect the male harasser. And the male harasser then goes on to do it again. And he can continue to do it because he can buy his way out. That's what's going on. That's a quote. We have extensive evidence of this. Close to home, the University of PEI scandal, the World Junior Hockey Championships here in Halifax, and countless other cases where victims are barred from speaking out. They did not have a choice. Despite this, the Minister of Justice continues to claim that there are pros and cons to the issue. Can the Premier clarify, what are the pros?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And there are no pros when you're a victim of a sexual assault. These are awful circumstances for sure, and we want to be sensitive to that. But I have heard, I would tell the member, I have heard from survivors who have entered into NDAs, and they tell me, I can't talk about it publicly, but I just want you to know that this was an important option for me, and I am thankful that it was there for me to take. Obviously not for everyone. These are complicated, very, very personal decisions, but I would just tell the member that there is another side to this story, and I do hear from survivors who have entered into them, and they were happy that it was an option. Not happy, but they were appreciative that option. They asked me not to remove that option from those who may want to choose it.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
The Premier will be glad to know we could retain that option and still protect victims. But since we're in the business of drawing parallels this week, here's another one. Just like with the Coastal Protection Act, this government was initially favorable to the idea of legislation restricting the use. They spent months, years actually, conducting endless rounds of jurisdictional scans and research, only finally to announce that although they disagree with the misuse of non-disclosure agreements, they actually plan to do nothing to stop it, despite mounting support from the public and organizations alike. The minister said that this government considered multiple factors but couldn't explain the about face. The Premier has said he's talked to people. Can the Premier tell me, who is he listening to? And is it the silent majority again, or can he actually table evidence of conversations he's had that have led him to this terrible decision?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's an unfortunate situation when we can compare surviving a sexual assault to armor rock on a coastline. But what I would say is I have heard from people who are survivors who are survivors who have entered into an NDA, and they tell me it was an important thing for them at that time. So we're totally sympathetic. I'm not a survivor. I can't put myself in those shoes, but I can try to imagine the emotions of it. And it's a serious topic. It's not one to be bantied around on the floor of the legislature. I want to assure all members. I want to assure.
Order. The Honourable Premier has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to assure all Nova Scotians that we take this matter with the very serious, in the very serious manner that it needs to be taken. Thank you, Madam Speaker.